Welcome to the Men's Podcast.
Men Who Will podcast.
This is your boy.
Yeah, get your name right, brother. Finesse, Spades, Grease. Which one is it?
This is your boy Rebel.
And your guy, your man, your homie, your big bro, Finesse.
All right.
So today we'll be talking about wartime generals. Subtopic or the real topic is just the emasculation of men and boys in today's society and how we feel about it. Wartime generals.
Yeah, man.
So
Talk about it.
yeah, so what does that title mean? Wartime generals. So I chose the title Wartime Generals because it makes me think about different movies or just moments in history where there was a general or someone in the military, some warrior leader in the military who was in a leadership position. He probably, he's holding down the fort, holding down power. And now the civilized class of politicians kind of want this dude out of office. They have their own things they want to do. It's a peaceful time. Um, and they just kind of want him gone. They don't feel like there's a need for a dude like him. He was good for a time in war, and now we're in a more civilized place. We have peace. We don't need him no more. So I titled this Wartime Generals because that's just a more colorful way of saying what's going on in society today, the emasculation of men or the negative outlook on what masculinity is when people say things like, oh, toxic masculinity. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what does that even mean? And why are they saying it like masculinity can be toxic? I don't believe that because I think what is the opposite of masculinity, which is femininity? And do I ever think that there is a toxic version of femininity? I don't think so. I think there are toxic people that do toxic things that happen to be masculine, but that doesn't mean that their masculinity or femininity, if they do it to the max by just being who their nature is, that that is somehow toxic. Like, oh, I killed somebody, I went hard on someone, that's because I'm masculine or something like that.
Mhm.
But anyways, what do you think?
Well, wartime generals, just to bring that back. When I think of that term, I don't. The way that the populace or the more civilized group get it wrong is they think, oh, wartime general means somebody who's always got to be hot-headed or who's always ready for war.
Macho man.
Yep, somebody who's ready to jump on the gun whenever faced with adversity. What to me is, wartime general is somebody who's composed. Somebody whenever faced with that adversity is able to stay level-headed, who's confident in himself, who's not ready to just make a decision just off whim, but able to think it out, make sure that they take the most efficient route. I'm also like a strategist, and so that's what I think whenever I think of a wartime general. And not to get too political, if you think about how most people think of wartime general versus how a wartime general should be, if you look at or POTUS right now, most people would say he's a wartime general, but I don't look at him as a wartime general because he's a person who's very. I look at him as a person who doesn't think about the things he does. He just kind of just makes his own
It's
decisions.
not strategic.
Exactly. To me, that's not a wartime general. Somebody who's more a wartime general will sit back, think, attack the situation
In a strategic way.
in a strategic way or a more efficient way, and to calm it down, not to hype it up. Somebody
Right.
who would try to settle the waters rather than make a big splash.
Right. Yeah. Well, for me, I think even to come to a point, and again, not to get too off topic, because it's just a fancy way again of we're talking about the emasculation of men, really. But I feel like with a wartime general, or even what's going on right now, for you to not want a wartime general sitting in, and not necessarily office, but just we just speaking figuratively, like just sitting in power, or just a man who he controls his own. He is his own warrior. He is his own king. He is his own general, his own
Mm-hmm.
leader, captain of himself. For you to not want a person like that is, it's a little weird, because if you think about it, when tough times come, he's not going to be ready. You know,
Yeah.
if it's all about, oh, he's civilized, he's above that, him and women are the same thing, there's no difference between the sexes, then what's going to happen when war does come?
Mm.
Figuratively and literally. You know, can he protect his house? Can he protect his himself? Can he protect his children? Can he protect his woman? You know, or
Mm.
is he, because of, you know, equality, or the way they paint equality, because I feel like equality is different than two people, a man and a woman, being equal in terms of human rights, versus, well, they're different though by sex and biology. Can, like, does he sit back because we have quote unquote equal rights, and wait for his wife to protect him, or his girlfriend to protect him? And is that cool? Because it's like, well, we're equal, and anything you can do, I can do better, you know?
Never.
So what is that? Well, anyways, just to bring it back a little bit. So I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, what kind of toys did you grow up playing with?
It's different though. Like I think nowadays, especially talking about the equality thing, everybody's trying to find gender neutral toys, which is
Mm,
so odd to me. Back in the day, we never had that. You know, looking at it now, it was just a natural thing. Guys play with this, and girls play with that, and we
right.
had our own separate toys, but nobody looked at it as if there was something wrong with it. Biologically, we all different, and there's just because we're different doesn't mean that one is stronger than the other. You know what I mean? I think
Right. It's a
even though
different
we
kind
have
of strength.
everybody has their own strength. That's what I'm trying to say is like how everybody's fighting for more girls to play with like guy toys, as far as like oh man, my girl needs to play with a truck because by playing with a truck she's more likely to become an engineer rather than a nurse or um somewhere something that has to do in the health field. And but us guys don't look at it like that. I mean, I don't know, some guys might, but I don't hear many guys fighting for to play with dolls or something like that because it'll show them how to be more caring. But yeah.
No, that's interesting. Like, I remember, and maybe my mom could attest to it, but I remember there was times, because it was myself and my sister. I grew up with my sister, and she had Barbies. I wasn't playing with them per se, like, oh, you know, I just had them. Maybe I thought they were cute, pretty, whatever, or I don't know, but I was playing with them. But you know, that got replaced, of course, with other toys, things like that. And I appreciate that, because I played with Muscle Man, G.I. Joe, Army soldiers, toys, trucks. I played with a lot of, what was it? A lot of tractors, tractor trailers, a lot of
Tonka
construction
trucks.
vehicle type things, you know, and it made you feel like building things like that. But still, okay, so yeah, it did have a certain effect on me, because later on I wanted to build. Or when I think about, you know, making these gains in the gym, I wanted to work out. I wanted to get these muscles. You know, you think about He-Man or Thundercats. You know, all these muscular things, or even Dragon Ball Z for some later with anime, things like that. You know, you wanted to be masculine. We were outdoors, all fighting in the backyard or in the front yard, like we thought we were Power Rangers or something like that. And I think that was a good outlet for our masculine energy, our growing testosterone, because if you, obviously there's always exceptions. Not every boy and girl are created the same. But if you survey, say, a classroom, usually if it's a mixed class with boys and girls, the girls can sit still a little longer than the boys. The boys have a certain kind of energy. You know, they don't just want to sit down and listen or whatever. They want to get around. They want to get out. They want to do something. They want to be
Release
active.
something.
And now we live in a time where they're trying to, you know, prescribe
Trying to
Ritalin or
suppress
something.
that,
They're
you
trying
know,
to, right. They're trying to, you have these teachers that are trying to suppress it. Your child needs special attention. Your child can't sit still or whatever.
rather than just channeling that energy into something positive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they look at it as something negative, as oh, he's disturbing the class. Or, you know, sometimes the kid just needs recess.
Exactly.
Sometimes he just needs to go out and do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you said, not everybody's the same. I remember back in the day. I mean, of course, I'm not saying that's what you should do, but for me, growing up, whenever a kid would get up and try to disturb the class or would disturb the class, or first thing we would get is, hey, of course, I didn't grow up here, so kind of put them down, give a little
You get a pow
slap,
pow. Say what it is, man.
get a
What you
little
trying to be all
slap. All right, all
politically
right,
correct
all right.
for?
Get a pow pow. You get a ruler, slap you on the back of the hand. You know exactly what time it is. After that, you were just like, oh well, okay. Now I understand to be quiet. Now I'm not saying like that's how we should go about it. Now, of course, we do live in a more modern society, and everybody's just woke, I guess nowadays,
Supposedly.
supposedly. But there's other ways to go about it. And I think that starts more of at home. To be honest with you, if your kid's not disciplined at home, of course you wouldn't expect him to be disciplined at school neither, right?
Him or her.
Him or her, yeah.
Yeah. Now speaking of which, you said kids need recess, and that's interesting because recess, you think about it, it's like, yes, I get to go outside and play. And it makes me think also about PE. I remember I wasn't no jock. I was a skinny kid growing up, and I would say in the Caribbean culture, the word was maga. That's the patois word for it. But
Hmm.
the English word would be meager, Meager, whatever. Meager was the English word for it. And I was, just a slender kid, string bean, whatever. But growing
In my country, we call that zopope. But go ahead.
Zopope, I love it.
It's like
Hey,
a bone puppet.
a bone puppet. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, there you go, right? So for me, that was like, all right, that's where to start. Not, oh, okay, I'm gonna stay there. That was like, all right, that's that. But I also play with, muscular whatever's. Look up to a Superman and Batman, and it sounds childish now or simple, but these things made a difference because you were thinking, well, I want to be a hero,
Hmm.
and I know people out there like, yeah, but what if my little girl want to be a hero too? All right, cool, but does she want to be a Superman or like a Superwoman? Does she or a Wonder Woman or whatever? Debatable, but nonetheless, guys, we weren't trying to be sitting around, you know, building house. And I remember playing house, but I also wanted to wreck house too.
Yeah.
So that was a whole nother thing. But we grew up, we were looking at all these fighting, cartoons and whatever. And we wanted to be like them. Like we would be on the playground. And many of y'all probably know the video with the little Jamaican kid where he's like, "No weakness, only strength." You know that
Yes.
little kid.
That
Like
kid.
that's like they look all muscular and
I love
shredded.
that
Like
kid.
that was us. Like we were little kids, not with that much personality, but we were definitely trying to be like, all right, who got the biggest muscle?
Hmm.
All 2-3 inch circumference. But we were still trying to do a pull up and still trying to exercise. And now I think we were the last class where people were looking for loopholes to get out of PE. You know, like I grew up pretty slender, and because of that, I wanted, if someone made fun of me or whatever, I wanted to become more muscular. I wanted to work out and get stronger.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't run from it. I wasn't looking for an excuse out of it, and I wasn't wanting society or the school or the class to punish everyone and say that all kids should not be allowed to work out so that we can all be skinny and equal or something like that. So for me, I remember when I hit like 11th or 12th grade, I was in this one physical education class. There was a cool football coach who taught it, and it was beside the weight room, which also was a class, weight training. And the dude, I don't know if he saw my ambition to want to put some muscle on or what, but he was like, if you finish your work, you can leave and go to the weight room. And I would literally finish my work early every day and go to the weight room. Around this same time, when I was in the 11th grade, you had kids that would go to the doctor and actually get notes and excuses so they would not have to do physical education.
Or don't have to change their clothes or
Right.
something like that, but still get graded as if they did.
Right. They wouldn't have to do an actual physical part, or even worse, they would do like PE on the computer.
See, I never even heard of that.
Yeah, I guess it's the physical education part, just the education part without doing the physical part.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. So I mean, just touching on how you said people need recess and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you got to channel that energy, that masculine energy.
hmm And going back to the discipline thing, growing up as a young boy, that energy could just be all over the place. But this is why I purely believe in like playing a sport or learning like a martial art discipline, just because it helps you to understand like you yourself in a I guess the more physical aspect of you, and just know your strength and know your weaknesses. You know what I mean? Because it'll humble you, man. Going against somebody who's stronger or bigger than you, it'll make you like calm down real quick. So
Mm-hmm.
in that way, I feel like even though from the outside it might seem like as that's a weakness, but being humble and knowing your strength and knowing your vulnerability, I think that describes you. I mean, you fit in more with being a man than somebody who's afraid of showing their vulnerability or showing their weak side. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
me, for me, of course, like I was a big fan of boxing, but I didn't really start fighting until after I got out of high school. And I joined the gym, and I remember going in there hot headed. Of course, straight out of high school, you think you're all that, and of course, like nobody could beat me. But it humbled me down real quick going against somebody who was a lot smaller than me, and me thinking, because I've been hitting the gym and I've been putting on some
Yeah.
muscle, because I got a big mouth on me, hey, I could handle anything. But somebody dropped me with a liver shot, somebody who's smaller than me, and he
Oof.
looked like somebody you probably any could take on had you seen him in the street somewhere. You probably would have looked at him like, I could take him on. But and that's
Liver
how I
shot.
was, stepped into the gym. I was like, I could take this kid on, but dropped me with a liver shot. Humbled me down real quick.
He went up against a wartime general right there.
Exactly. But what I learned is, from training, um, that kid, like he was, he's one of my good friends till now, but he was composed. He wasn't talking that yada yada crap that most guys talk in the streets. He was just like, yo, you know what? All right. Because I was talking, I was like, whatever, I could take you on. And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, all right, cool. He just kept it level headed. He knew exactly what he was gonna do. He knew he wasn't gonna like really put me out of like damage me to the point where I wouldn't be able to come back. But he knew enough he knew to put enough pressure to make me realize like, yo, don't test me. You know what I mean? And I think that's what a wartime general is all about. Somebody who's all about that, confident. Somebody who's able to carry himself, not to showboat, but stay calm, cool, kind of like not fit in with the crowd much,
Right.
but stand out in his own way.
Right.
And I'm all about that. I'm all about a wartime general who may not seem like it on the surface, but within is truly that leader that you're looking for.
Word. Word.
And because a lot of people might look like a leader on the surface, because oh yeah, I got a nice car. I might like that's that doesn't describe you as a man, or because I look big, I lift weights, and you see a lot of those in the gym or wherever you go. You go on the basketball court,
Mm-hmm.
these dudes will try to size you up like, no, bro. Well, to me, I'm just trying to. I'm the person who's trying to diffuse the situation whenever faced with one of those guys. It's like, dude, I don't have time for this. Even though I consider myself a person who really could handle the situation pretty well, but it's not for me to release that energy in a way where it's not gonna really solve anything.
Or
I'm trying to find the most efficient way to diffuse the problem to
mm,
where I could just continue having fun while still maintaining my respect.
what you think about, I guess, the way, because I don't know about most people out there. I pulled away from watching TV. I don't even own a TV anymore.
Hmm.
Actually, I probably never owned a TV myself. You know, my parents' TV or whatever. So I don't own a TV, and I don't watch. A lot. Like, I'll be at work and people will be asking me stuff like, "Well, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? Did you see that commercial?" And I used to, because I'm known for my DJ brain, so I used to also have a commercial brain. Not anymore. Um, but what I've been noticing, not to get all cliche like we're trying to get out the matrix or anything, but we kind of are. We're trying to wake up, really be woke, for those who say they woke but yet don't believe that men and women are different or that we should celebrate their differences. Just the representation of men in the media, to me, over the last, I don't know, 15 or so years, that I've been paying attention, has been real strange. Like, you'll always see sitcoms and commercials where it's a family, mom, dad, one or a few children, and they always paint the dad as silly, goofy, um, incompetent. And to me, it makes me wonder, well, why, if he's all of that, did she marry him? Are they trying to say that that's how all men are, and that it's okay to marry a guy like that and you run things? Like, why would you, if he is all of that, marry that? Or when you would hear jokes by women who may only have two kids, but if someone asks how your kids are doing, they'll say, "Oh, my three kids at home are fine." Kind of referring to, oh, the two kids and the father being a kid as well. Like, what are they trying to do? Or the one I hate the most,
Hmm.
the minivan commercial. I mean, there's other stuff I hate too, but they got this. I remember I was listening to Spotify. Yeah, I got the pays. I got the free
It's just
Spotify, so I be hearing ads. I'm working on that, but anyway, one of the ads was like a minivan, a Dodge minivan commercial, and they were trying to make it masculine. And come on, I'm not gonna give a disclaimer. I'm gonna keep it real. It's my opinion, but I don't feel that a minivan is a manly vehicle.
not at all.
And
Yeah, we want monster trucks.
word, or I always looked at it like when people are like, "Oh, get a minivan." Like, no, why not just get an SUV if you need more space? Why a minivan with a sliding door?
Well, everybody's built equal. If there's a such thing as a soccer mom, it must be a soccer dad as well, right?
I guess, and I guess she's the one. If I'm gonna be the soccer dad, if somebody's gonna rob the crib, I'm gonna chill back and let my wife go out there with protection and try to see who's trying to invade our house, right?
To me, man, I thought it was somebody who's gonna provide security. If everybody's built equally, where are you gonna find that security in a man? You know?
I really don't know. I think that we should celebrate the differences. I think that men should be wartime generals because even if it's a time of peace, I don't think you should do away with your masculinity. Um, I think it should be there, and it's going through those experiences in life, whether you got into fights as a kid, played with masculine toys, handle situations where you head to head with other boys, stuff like that adds up, or even just other rougher things that you go through as a
Mm.
man growing up. Those things add up to make you who you are. And if you deprive men of that and say that no, they should do the same things women should do and everything should be gender neutral, then how are they going to handle things the way classic men handled them? we have, and of course there are women as well, but for the majority speaking, we have men who are protecting our freedoms across seas. If you disappear, that's the way I want to say it. If you disappear all the men that are protecting your freedoms with, testosterone and masculinity and brains, and let the borders run free, who is going to protect us?
The woman,
Yeah,
the
well,
women.
seriously, like, could you imagine a dude, a domesticated dude, chilling at the crib, and like militias are running around rampant and kicking in the doors? Like, what is gonna happen to that dude? Like, you, In fact, armies back in the day were militias, right? Where it was just the local people who, the local men, the local townsmen gathered arms and would be the army. Are
Hmm.
the men today, the way they're being socialized, capable of doing that if it was a time of war?
Yeah, and even so, like you bringing back, old days or tradition, just because the men and the women, they weren't built equally. Like, of course, you had the wartime general, you had the dudes that would go into war, and of course, the women wouldn't do it, even though they weren't built differently. They each had their own strength. The people that would fabricate those weapons or fabricate the I guess like suits and armor of war would be the women, and the men would actually go into war, and the women would stay behind, take care of the kids, and I guess fix their meals and whatever, so they could endure.
Right.
And so, even though they had their own differences, they still had their own strengths. And like you said, we should definitely celebrate that.
Okay. So for me, just to end it in a nutshell, I think that and it's something that you really like, the concept of yin and yang. You
Hmm.
need balance. If you can't have two yins, you can't have two yans. So you have a man, you have a woman, you celebrate their differences, you celebrate their strengths, and you compensate for the other's weakness instead of just saying, oh, because they have a weakness, that's, we got to do away with the positive aspects of that person. So, femininity, I think it's something that should be celebrated. Masculinity, I think it's something that should be celebrated. Those differences, they come together to make a yin and a yang. And this might be off topic, but I remember this. I was chilling, I was at church. There's this one little girl who hopped out of the car. I was talking to her father. I hadn't seen them in a while. And this little girl couldn't be 4 years old. Don't even know if she remembered me. But I'm like, yo, what you doing? Why you hopping out your toddler seat? What you doing? Like, did your dad say you could hop out the seat? And then she ran up on me and just gave me a hug. And it melted the boy. You know what I'm saying? It melted me. And that, obviously there's many, millions of examples, but that was just, there was strength in her femininity because, again, you hear the saying like, oh, daughters, um, they can wrap their father around their fingers because they're usually in those early stages, they're exercising their feminine powers. When a woman could disarm her man, he might come home, pissed off at the world, and in her wisdom, she's able to disarm him. I think about one of my best friends, and I said this example before in one of the last episodes, but one of my best friends, she didn't meet fire with fire like, oh, I could argue with you just as bad as you could argue as a man or whatever. Nah, she hit me with the yan to my yin and said, baby, I don't feel like arguing. And she wasn't facetious. She said it in a sweet feminine voice, and that was able to disarm me and make me
Hmm.
think, well, why am I tripping like this? Let me chill out for a minute. And I feel like a lot of people, society, um, feeds into women who don't really know. I don't want to call them naive, but you sometimes you're fed something and don't even realize it, and then you run with it. I feel like people make a lot of women feel like their femininity is a weakness, but
Yeah.
it's actually a strength. Like, how many, talking about wartime generals, how many women have probably made a positive impact on a certain king? And obviously there's the negative aspect, but in just wisdom in war, like, he looked to his wise woman's counsel. Like, do you feel that Michelle Obama wasn't consulted by Barack in certain things? Or if you consider the movie 300, King Leonidas, You know, when the dude ran up on him talking that mess about, you know, we have all these king's heads right here and you need to bow down or lay down. Like, he looked back to his wife before he did anything
Mm-hmm.
and consulted with her. You know, she, a woman, her femininity, one of the powerful things women have are, what is it called? Intuition. You know, I always think of to my mother's intuition and consult that. Like, those are things that should be celebrated just like a man's masculinity. Um, but anyways, so that's what I feel. We do need more wartime generals, people who are ready for war. You know, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
For sure.
You guys, let us know what you think in terms of wartime general, or just the emasculation of men, the suppression of women femininity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, boys and girls are the same thing. You can choose your gender. It doesn't matter. We're all the same. Let us know what you think.